Hello, Internet! Welcome to another episode of Trailer Talk, that spin-off of that random podcast show where Michael and I discuss the stuff that happens in trailers given out by Hollywood. And we are keeping it quite topical this time around because we have just finished watching the official premiere of Marvel Studios in association with Sony's Pictures division, the worldwide premiere of Tom Holland as the new Spider-Man in Spider-Man Homecoming. And ladies, gentlemen, others, sentient dogs at the keyboards, whoo, man, consider myself hyped. Michael?
It's Spooderman. Yeah.
Spooderman!
Back.
Spooderman's. I was worried. I think a lot of us was worried about this one.
It was Marvel.
People.
Like, Marvel actually... In fact, I was more excited for this than any Spider-Man announcement because Marvel was taking creative reign. So I knew it was going to be great. Well, at least I'd hoped it was going to be great. Like, especially after seeing Tom in the Avengers. Avengers. Oh my goodness. In Civil War. All of my doubt went away. I was like, okay, this guy has the chops for Spider-Man. He's Peter Parker.
He is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He's Spider-Man and he's Peter Parker. And that is really difficult to get because we actually discussed this here and there. Like, Tobey Maguire in the Raimi movies, he was a great dorky Peter Parker. Couldn't really sell Spider-Man all that well. Andrew Garfield tried a little too hard to be Spider-Man and kind of came off like a dick in the Amazing movies. Tom Holland nails both parts so well in Civil War, and he was an absolute treat to see. It also helps that he's actually like 20 or something. He actually is closer to the appropriate age range than the other actors before him, and that's saying quite a lot. But I say I was worried because it could have easily just been another Marvel movie that's just introducing Spider-Man. I mean, as weird as that sounds, people are always afraid that Marvel is going to eventually fall into a pattern and it's going to run out and they're not going to be able to keep it up. But everything we've seen in this 2-minute trailer completely reinvigorated what we enjoy so much about the character. I mean, like, I like other superheroes just fine. Like I mentioned before in our Doctor Strange review, I remember reading a bit of Doctor Strange. I inhaled Spider-Man's comics. I ate them like Kirby. Every single time I could find something revolving around Spider-Man, I read it. I'm a huge fan of Spider-Man. So, seeing this trailer, they got it so right. Like the opening scene where he stops that bank robbery with a bunch of armed guys dressed up in Avengers masks. Hey, you guys aren't the real Avengers. I mean, come on, the Hulk's a clear giveaway, and he just knocks them on their butts. That was great.
Yeah, they definitely have the comedy chops down. Like, Tom, he has good timing, from what we can tell. You know, when I saw him during the cafeteria scene, I just thought Scott Pilgrim. I was like, you know what? If they ever did another Scott Pilgrim, if they ever did a reboot or remake or whatever, this guy can do it because he reminds me of like Scott Pilgrim. So it already shows how dorky he is, and it shows that he.
Oh my gosh!
It shows that he already has a look for it. And his acting chops, he has good comedy chops. He has some pretty good timing.
Oh yeah.
And it seems like the supporting characters they have around him, like his friend. His one friend. It seems like he only has that one friend, but his friend. Really seem to click together, and they both have some pretty good chemistry that we can see already. So I'm looking forward to seeing I'm looking forward to seeing these two a little bit more than I am with Spider-Man and Tony Stark for some reason. Like, I want to see these two friends. Since it's in high school, since it's put in high school, and we're going through Peter's high school days, I like to see that friend.
Wow. Yes, like, this is something that bothered me about the Amazing Spider-Man movies. They put Peter Parker back in high school, but they didn't really do a whole lot with it. They did it just so they can play up this really, really kind of painful to watch puppy dog romance with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. And that was fine, but you really didn't need to keep Peter Parker in high school for that. Andrew Garfield is a good actor, but he is way too suave and confident to be a high school student. as you said though, that scene with Tom Holland with him as Peter Parker and his buddy sitting there and watching Mary Jane, I'm like, yeah, this is awkward and off-putting. I mean that beat where a girl says, yeah, it really is awkward. You're just staring at her. You guys are total dweebs. I'm like, no, that's perfect.
Yeah, see that it worked for this Spider-Man because it was that dorky Spider-Man we liked. The last Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man, he wasn't way too confident for a high school student. He was way too confident to be a Peter Parker. And
oh my gosh,
yeah. and that was off-putting. And I was like, this is not Peter Parker.
It was really weird. It's weird because I know Peter Parker eventually becomes that, but that's like after 10 years of not being in high school and where he is currently in the comics. You can't start at high school and go to there. But you know what? You did bring up another big, oh my gosh, moment of this trailer. They're continuing this relationship that they were kind of hinting at in Civil War with Robert Downey Jr. returning as Tony Stark and helping Peter Parker out. And that is brilliant. And it led to one of my favorite dialogue exchanges so in the trailer where he said listen, don't do anything I would do, but also don't do anything I wouldn't do. What? There's a little gray area. Try to stay in there. That's your territory. It's funny because it's just great trying to see Tony Stark trying to be this nurturing mentor character and him realizing, oh my god, I am a terrible role model. What the heck do I tell this kid? And we got a good beat out of it.
It shows that this does take place in the Marvel Universe. Tony has continued...
Oh yeah, this is definitely clearly now an MCU
Yeah, it shows that Tony has changed a little bit. He's gotten a little wiser to where he's still doing dumb mistakes, because of his ego, but he's
and of course after the events of Civil War, the Sokovia Accords are full swing.
And he gives Peter a bit of pep talk, if you can, Tony Stark's pep talk, and he gives him a new suit, and we even see that he's trying to help the kid out, trying to show him that he can be an Avenger, but he has to learn first, because jumping in head first is the wrong thing to do. And
says the guy that flew him out halfway across the world so he can have a giant fist fight with Captain America and Ant-Man in an airport.
Well, I mean, nice job, Tony. Yeah, but Tony wanted to bring the kid in, and he just found the reason to do it. Especially since New York, everybody's in New York. The kid's gonna pop up anyway.
Everybody's in New York.
Yeah, the kid's gonna.
The Marvel Universe, everything happens in New York.
Yeah, the kid's gonna pop up anyway, so it makes sense to bring him on the team. But
and I did like they also continue that. Tony's, as you said to yourself, he's learned. He's not trying to leave everything alone. Once again, going back to Civil War, him bringing up that video footage of seeing Peter Parker in that crappy suit, and him saying, "Wow, you're actually really strong and tough. I should really, keep an eye on you and kind of make sure you're staying on the right path," because as we said to ourselves, Spider-Man is probably one of the scariest, in terms of power level, strongest characters in the Marvel Universe, and they showed that off in Civil War. I mean, the stuff he was throwing, the stuff he was doing, and that brief scene where he, catches the Winter Soldier's punch, and he's like, wow, this is really neat. He's not even caring he's holding back a cyber, punching, piston of death, and he's like, oh, wow, this is really neat. Then, just knocks him flat on his duff. That's great, and they kept that up.
Yeah. Okay, so we agreed Tom is a pretty good Peter Parker. What about Vulture? How do you like his new look?
Oh, yes, we also officially got confirmation. I mean, they discussed this before in interviews, but they did say they were going to bring in Michael Keaton as Vulture. And I'm actually surprised how interesting they went with the design of the Vulture. But first things first, I do like how they cast Michael Keaton as the Vulture, because honestly, Keaton really hasn't done much of his career in terms of big success outside of the first two Tim Burton Batman movies. Well, the only two Tim Burton Batman movies. And there was that arty movie called Birdman. He did with what's his face, Inarritu. No offense to the director, I just can't remember his full name. I just remember his surname being Inarritu, which I remember being kind of weird because it was kind of a sort of artsy put down of superhero movies, and now here he is in an MCU movie playing a villain. But at the same time, I do like they went with Michael Keaton as the Vulture, and I do like the design of the Vulture, because most people, when they think of the Vulture from the comics, they usually think of this old guy that is basically wearing a bird costume. Like, seriously, look back at the Vulture costume for the comics. It looks like somebody went out to a party store and grabbed a bird costume and then just flapped really hard and became airborne. Them kind of going with this sort of robot suit with these metal blades and this sort of super weapon, that I'm fine with, because once again, going back to the very basics of the comics, Adrian Toomes was an inventor that liked making certain inventions, and he just kept getting, stuff happening to him where he couldn't really utilize his tools at all, so he turned to crime. And it looks like, just from the very brief action scenes we've seen so far involving the Vulture, they're keeping to that, because they're keeping with this very threatening look, like that shot where he descends down the wing spread and those razor sharp talons come down in right in front of the camera. That's scary. Most people, whenever I thought of the Vulture, I remember the robot Vulture where he threw those metal quills that were part of the wings. Those talons, yikes. Also, there's that brief action scene where you see an explosion go out from that would look like a containment ship. Once again, going back into him doing these crimes for theft, for parts, for a bigger thing. They're keeping it kind of small, and I like that about this. Even though it's set in the MCU, we don't need this to be some big world-ending thing, or another Infinity Stone has to get introduced. It's just much more intimate.
Way more intimate. Okay, yes. Now, we've been seeing throughout this trailer that these robbers, they've been having some high-tech tools, like Tony Stark level tools. Breaking into ATMs, using them so they don't trip off alarms. We see one of them maybe blasting it towards Spider-Man, blowing up a couple areas. It had the same purple hue as the containment shipment had when it exploded. So, you said that he was building weapons. Maybe we're not only dealing with the Vulture. Maybe we're dealing with a bigger thing, a bigger crime organization.
Actually, you know what would be great? If it wasn't just Michael Keaton, what if they introduced the Tinkerer? I would like to see that.
It's Marvel. If anything, they'll probably introduce if it is a secondary character, it'll be at the end, after the end credits, that they'll show him. But again, in Doctor Strange, they did show off the second villain close to the end of the movie, and then in after credits. So we'll see what they'll do here.
In order to expand, but then again, Doctor Strange, you were allowed that because you were expanding upon this whole other facet of the Marvel Universe. Spider-Man: Homecoming, it really just seems to be saying, "Hey, Spider-Man's back, and all of his memorable characters are now being integrated into our world." But as you said, we're back in New York, and we've kind of been to New York several times already. So a secondary villain keeping it to the credits would make a certain level of sense. But in terms of who they can introduce, I mean, the Kingpin is still technically part of the Netflix series, which is why I mentioned, maybe the Tinkerer, or maybe we might see a much more familiar face, maybe Osborn. Just saying.
See, I was thinking more I hope they introduce Doc Ock, because I would like to see Marvel's take on Dr. Octopus, because he has some pretty cool toys in the comic books.
That's gonna be difficult to pull off, because I really don't think another adaptation outside Alfred Molina's version for Spider-Man 2 can be topped. But that's me personally. But this is speculation. Let's get back to the other juicy things in the trailer, because there is a bit to kind of take apart. First of all, I do enjoy the tone they're going with, that Spider-Man's trying to swing back out of his weight class again. He's got a taste of fighting alongside the Avengers, being exposed to this big new world, and Tony Stark is saying, "No, please. You don't have to do this," and you see him going for it. And frankly, that's what I've always found so appealing about Spider-Man. Him being able to push himself and do these great, amazing things that nobody else would expect. It's why he's always been appreciated as a member of the Avengers, the Avengers, the Defenders, the Champions, the Fantastic Four. He's been in a lot of teams throughout the comics, so that's perfectly fine. What I do find interesting, though, is this is something that freaked me out when I saw the teaser. They like that 20-second teaser before the official trailer premiered. It was the reintroduction of the web wings on the suit.
Yeah,
and Michael, you have no idea how much that made me want to freak out.
Yeah, when I heard the rumors that they were going to go that route, I was like, man, would that look too silly? Because it looked cool in the comics. And I know, and in one of the animations adaptation, they actually used it, and it looked kind of cartoony. Yeah, it looked kind of cartoony, but
we see in the trailer, and it looks like a base jumping suit, kind of almost looks like one of those squirrel base jumping suits, and he uses to kind of glide a bit along with his web swinging. That is a cool idea.
Yeah, like I said, they used it in one animated series, and it looked
Spider-Man Unlimited, I think.
That might have been it, and it looked kind of silly, but maybe it was the animation style that made it look that way. It made sense in the comics because it was a comic book. You already had a guy who can, throw webs,
spin webs, swing around buildings without having his arms pull out of his sockets.
Yeah, so it was like, it's a cool little addition to his arsenal. But seeing the way it actually works, like it's not completely the suit. Like he actually had to try and spread it, like just like a squirrel suit, just like the wingsuit. So it makes sense because they keep it sort of grounded. It still looks comic booky. It still looks like something that comes out of a comic book.
And of course, it's allowed to be a little bit comic booky because it's been built by Tony Stark. So you have that kind of hand wave.
Yeah. So it looks like something that comes out of the comic book, but also something that looks like it fits in the real world because there's all kinds of wingsuits that we have and experimentations and whatnot. And with the technology that Tony Stark has in the Marvel universe already shown off, it works. It really works because it's on the side of the suit and not like eternally attached to him like it was in an animated series.
Oh yeah, like seriously, you show that off. All somebody has to do is like shoot right there. But then again, spider sense. But it kind of goes back to the comic book bit. But the more I think about it, though, I am appreciating how they're using Michael Keaton as the Vulture, because old guy, brilliant, thinks the world has slighted him, and he's saying basically, and I think there's like one scene where he's like in a car and he's looking at Peter Parker, I think, and he basically says stay out of my way, you don't know what you're dealing with, and it looks like they're going back with that theme of Spider-Man basically being a young guy coming into an old veteran's game, which I think is a fun commentary, not only on his arc and his journey in this movie, but also the MCU as a whole. Because you said to yourself, we're up to the third phase of we all know now, we're in the third phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We've been introduced to the Guardians of the Galaxy. We've been introduced to Doctor Strange's neck of the woods. We've come to this huge world that we now know, the integrated, and now we're going back to New York City with Queens and this little 20-year-old dweeb in a spider costume swinging around. What could he possibly bring to the table that makes him so amazing? See what I did there? And they're following through on that with the villain of the week being this older hand character. And I think that's actually what's helping this bit sizzle, which is also why they seem to do a scene near the end that actually reminded me of one of my favorite scenes of Spider-Man 2, which is the scene where you see, it's very brief, you see Spider-Man webbing up this boat and he's trying to hold it together. You know the scene I'm talking about, where he has all these webs.
It looked like the train scene from
the train scene from Spider-Man 2.
It kind of like the train scene.
Still one of my favorite scenes. Still one of my favorite scenes of Spider-Man 2, except at the same time, they don't try to tug on the heartstrings in that exact same way in this Homecoming trailer. Like, it looks like he's just doing it to do it. Like, I can do this, I can handle this. Which was, much more simple and much more determined than the train scene of Spider-Man 2, which was a lot more heroic self-sacrifice, I can't let these people die sort of thing. Which was in and of itself a noticeable enough change to keep me interested. And, did I miss anything? Did I really miss anything? Oh, that brief scene where his buddy discovers he's Spider-Man, and we get to see Holland kind of rocking the Superman abs, so to speak.
I mean, that's not the part I was thinking of. I was thinking about the very end where we see Iron Man suit up and fly out alongside Spider-Man. Yeah, that. When I saw that, I thought it was Vulture at first chasing Spider-Man until I went back, and
then you look through the frames and it's like, nope, that's Iron Man.
Iron Man. It's like, because I thought they were just gonna have Tony Stark in here to connect that. Hey, remember, this is part of the MCU now.
Hi, I'm here. Let me get my check. Hey, how's it going, Tom? Good luck. Don't mess it up. I'm out.
I thought Tony was gonna stay as like a supporting secondary character. But it was like he does actually have a nice part in this movie. It actually looks like he's here for the long run and not just here to pop up. Hey, don't
he's
forget.
Not here just a cameo.
It's like, hey, remember me? All right, I'm out of here and be done with it. Like, he actually has lines. He's actually interacting with Peter, and from what we can see now, he's going to interact with Spider-Man as Iron Man. So I'm excited for that.
And I do like that. It reminded me of how kind of Nick Fury operated in the early bits of the MCU. He just showed up here and there, but slowly, came into his own, like, the Avengers and Captain America: The Winter Soldier. But now Tony is kind of overtaking that, and I like that because once again, this is Marvel, and they do know their stuff. Like, I'm remembering, it reminded me of the time that Tony Stark took over as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and how that went crazy. But that's comics. It works also here in this movie. Not to mention, it was another big fat nerd cred fan service moment because I've always wanted to see Spider-Man team up with the Avengers and fight a bad guy and take down some big threat. But having him team up with Iron Man to deal with some big threat about the Vulture, you know what? That is awesome. I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to accept that, and I'm willing to completely buy into this. And seriously, I think I mentioned this to you before we started recording. All this trailer had to do was show, once again, more Tom Holland as Spider-Man, show off Michael Keaton as the Vulture, and sell a coherent sort of threat and danger to him, which is getting to be very difficult to do in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because we've kind of learned to internalize the usual hero's journey arc. Get powers, great responsibility, fight the bad guy gets defeated, hero moves on, and then he gets, an invitation to join the Avengers. And yet, they managed to make that sizzle here. They managed to make this really sell. And they do it in such a great way. Like, once again, they didn't here's the thing as well. They didn't rehash the Uncle Ben stuff. I was expecting, like, seriously, if this trailer opened with, like, Tom Holland seeing Uncle Ben getting shot and, no, never forget, Peter. I won't, Uncle Ben. I'll never forget. I would have just face-palmed and shut the whole video off. But they don't do that. They kept the pace going. They kept it very fluffy and upbeat and energetic and optimistic, which is a core tenement of this character. You can't make him a broody, moody misery guts. Only painful idiocy goes down that route. Spider-Man 3!
It's happened in the original well, I don't know the original comics, but it's happened in the comics where they've had moments where Peter has lost all hope and has become depressed. So, I think that's where Spider-Man...
multiple times.
And I think that's where Spider-Man 3 tried, but, that's a whole different other talk. But July 7th, 2017, that's when we get our Spider-Man back.
That's when we get the glorious return of the Amazing Spider-Man of the MCU. So, final thoughts on this trailer as a whole, Michael. Are you officially excited to go see Spider-Man Homecoming?
I mean, I was already excited. Like, all this did was confirm to me that Marvel really, really wanted to get Spider-Man into the MCU, and they're gonna keep their end of the promise and have use their creative freedom to make a good Spider-Man movie, and that's all I asked for.
I mentioned before, Michael, Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes ever, and this looks like it's going to be a great installment for this character. Like, I love the first two Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Tom Holland looks like he can bring the goods. And honestly, I don't know anything about the director they have to direct Homecoming, but it looks like they're keeping everything in just that right mix of practical effects, CG light, or say CG where it needs to be, but it seems to be very clean CG. And they seem to be going with much more cleaner camera work. Once again, this is a trailer. This could all just be subterfuge, but it looks clean. It looks properly focused. None of this dour, overshot, high contrast, light, darkness stuff that we're doing in the Amazing movies. And as I said before, I'm actually keen to see how they handle Michael Keaton as the Vulture. So you're hyped. You're even more hyped. I am ecstatic. So I think that about wraps up for another episode of Trailer Talk. Right, so where can we follow you?
Before we end this, the director is Jon Watts. I think this...
Jon Watts?
Yeah, I think this might actually be the biggest movie he's made.
Really? Do you think what else is on his filmography?
He did a movie with Kevin Bacon called Cop Car.
Dang.
Yeah.
I never seen that.
But he was a director for the Onion News Network. So So he definitely knows a thing or two. So he definitely knows a thing or two about directing comedy.
About comedy beats, yeah, comedy beats. Like the Onion videos are always funny. So you know what? I actually got nothing wrong with that. Like, Marvel does a good job of casting interesting directors that bring something new to things.
Well,
like, I got nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, if anything, this goes to prove that they're keeping it smallish compared to the other Marvel comic universes. Because they got a director who can probably do something big, yet small at the same time. Like, keep it light, keep it even. So I don't think we have to worry about this huge CGI feel. I mean, there's going to be some, of course, but we don't have to worry about, like, a Thor Dark Worlds kind of CGI filled world, so I'm okay with that.
Oh dear me, Thor: The Dark World CG was so dodgy. But yeah, you know what? I think those are our thoughts on the trailer for Spider-Man: Homecoming. We're excited. We cannot wait to see it. Let us know your thoughts. If we can't use the comments below on YouTube, probably going to be a thing. You can also follow us on our many different social media handles, and feel free to geek out with us or disagree about how my love of Spider-Man is not as good as your love of Spider-Man. I don't really care. Love is love, yo. Where can we follow you, Michael?
You can, of course, find me on Twitter with Zafmod, ZAFMOD, and if for some strange reason you can't find me like that, you can find me on my Twitter handler with @M_MOSLEY_JR.
Cool. You can follow me on Twitter at Darth Rahu, all one word, capital D as in Darth Vader, capital RAHU. I also blog on cybertavern.blogspot.com, and I have my own Tumblr page at digitaldesperado26. Feel free to send us horrible fan art or Spider-Man fan art. I'm fine with that. But in the meantime, I think that'll about do it for this new episode. We'll see you in the next one.
Good night, or morning, wherever you are. Later. Yeah.